would you introduce yourself to our community?
Thank you, Liam. Ni hao. Thank you for
Ni hao.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me to do this. I am honored.
Yeah.
I walked in and I met you outside and I realized that this is a welcoming environment. And so I really want to say thank you for that.
No problem.
I'm here to talk about my county assessor race. As you know, I'm running
right.
to be the next county assessor.
Sure.
And so I view this as an opportunity to do more outreach to the community because as assessor, I intend to reach out to all communities, work with all communities, and support all communities. And so I'm very happy to be here.
So tell me something about yourself. How many years have you been serving the community or any public service position?
A long time. So I am currently the vice mayor on the Los Altos City Council in my second term. So in my first term, I was first elected to the Los Altos City Council in 2018 and served for 4 years. And during those 4 years, I was mayor, vice mayor, council member. Ran again for re-election in 2022, was the top vote getter again in Los Altos. And now I'm serving as vice mayor. So that's 7 years serving on the Los Altos City Council. Before that, I actually served on the El Camino Healthcare District Board, which is also an elected body. I was fortunate enough to be appointed to a seat whereby the person who was elected to fill that seat stepped down unexpectedly, and so they needed to fill that seat. So I was appointed to fill that seat, and I served a little bit more than a year in that elected capacity, but I was appointed to that seat. And El Camino represents multiple cities in the Bay Area. And so I had that public service role, learning even more about the community and the residents we serve. So I have done El Camino Healthcare District Board, Los Altos City Council, and I've also been a regional leader. I've been president of the Cities Association of Santa Clara County, Liam, which includes all 15 cities here in Santa Clara County. On this board, we have a representative from each of the cities. And I was fortunate enough to be elected by the other council members to be the president of this organization. And I've also served as president of the Peninsula Division Board, which is an even broader regional body that includes San Mateo County cities, San Francisco, and Santa Clara County cities. And so I've held multiple public service roles. I enjoy it. I love giving back to the community and using my skill sets to serve.
So when we met, you talked about you moved to the States around 18 years old, and you came from Jamaica.
Yes.
How exactly you feel about this country? Let's talk about this. Is this a good state of this country so far?
Right. I love America. My family migrated to Miami, Florida, as I mentioned, decades ago. And we came here like many other immigrant families to find a better life. Education is very important to Jamaicans.
Yeah, that's very similar to the East Asian people.
Yes. Education. If you know my parents, and my mom was a former public school teacher. So I grew up in a very, disciplined, strict household. And education was definitely a priority.
Right.
A matter of fact, in Jamaica, they follow the British school system.
I see.
Where you do A levels and O levels. And I don't know if you're familiar with that educational system, but it's a very British school system that the Jamaica and many other Caribbean islands follow.
Yeah.
And so I did that in Jamaica until I migrated to America, where I did public university in Miami. And then I was fortunate enough, Liam, to get into Georgetown Law. So I went to law school at Georgetown Law in D.C.
Top school.
It is, and I remember it was my #1 school, and it's not easy to get into. I knew it would be competitive,
Right.
but I studied hard. I focused. I was determined to get into Georgetown Law because it was in D.C. And I wanted to be in D.C. And the type of law I wanted to do, Georgetown had the professors that I wanted to learn from.
Yeah, it's usually regarded as the top elite school, right?
Right.
And where did you learn that? Like, first, what's your major? Then, what you learned, like spiritually or just in life aspect?
Right. So, I went to Georgetown Law for law school. For undergrad at the public university I went to in Miami, I studied political science and international relations, knowing full well that I wanted to go on to law school. And for me, law school was also a path to lead to public service. I knew I had student loans. And so going to Georgetown, I knew I had to figure out how to pay off my student loans, but at the same time, figure out how I can continue to serve my community. And so when I joined, so one of the things I should have mentioned, I worked for the county counsel's office at the Santa Clara County Counsel's Office, which are the attorneys that provide legal support to the different county departments. And in doing that, it's another form of public service. Yes, I'm an attorney for the county, but I'm representing and providing legal advice to county departments and county employees and members of the Board of Supervisors. And so it was a great opportunity for me to combine both my legal practice with serving the public in that capacity. And today, I mentioned that I am running to be the next county assessor. I am actually the number 2 in the office right now. I'm the assistant assessor in the office. Before that, I was special assistant to the assessor, Larry Stone, who retired, who has endorsed me for this race.
Yeah.
And then before that, I was the attorney for the assessor's office. So I have breadth of experience working for and with the assessor's office. I know the work. I love the work. I joke, Liam, that I'm already doing the work. I just don't have the elected position yet. And that's one of the things that distinguishes me from the other candidates in the race. I know the work. I'm already doing the work, modernizing the office, increasing community engagement, because I want all communities to know about our office, the programs and services we provide to the community, and get feedback. If there are areas for us to improve, Liam, I am ready on day one to review those proposals and implement them if we can. Those are the kinds of changes I've already brought to the assessor's office, and I plan to continue doing when I'm the next assessor.
Yeah. So from what I know, the incumbent assessor, Larry Stone, endorsed you. Then the question will be, what would you agree greatly with him, and would you possibly disagree with him? That's right.
No, that's a great question. And I am honored to have Larry Stone's endorsement. He has been our assessor for 30 years.
Yes.
And so he knows what the job requires. He knows the type of person that can actually do that job. And the fact that he has endorsed me is huge, and it speaks volumes. Having said that, as the next assessor, because I'm already in the office, that will allow a smooth transition in leadership and continuity. And in this budget crisis that we're facing in our county, Liam, we need to make sure that this office is stable and it's doing the work that it needs to do. But I will do a lot of things differently. And it's funny, Liam, I've already started doing things differently from some of the things Larry has done. First, with the modernization of the technology. Our office has been using the same COBOL system for the last 40 years. And the team has made many attempts over the last several years to get off that system. And for different reasons, it just never moved forward.
Tell me about that.
Yes.
I think that's a huge point, right?
It is.
Because other candidates, they talk about this, and we feel like, that's ridiculous. Like, this office managed like $750 billion asset, and we're still using the half-century ago technology. That's unacceptable.
Right.
Why? You said multi-factored, but
Right.
Explain that.
And so there were different starts and stops over the last 19 years. I wasn't in the office when they made these previous attempts. Cost, having the right team, finding the right vendor. There were just different reasons why it never moved forward. But when I was brought in last year, and I was tasked with figuring out how we move this forward. I got a team of 42 people, Liam, and I got us going. You know, coming from tech, I worked at HP for 9 years. So coming from tech...
What's your position there?
I was an attorney. So
attorney.
Yes, transactional attorney, part of the legal executive team, representing the global supply chain and alliance organization, and also personal systems. So I had a big role at HP in the legal team. And so knowing my background in tech and legal, when they brought me back to the assessor's office last year, I got to work immediately because, as you know, coming from tech, we move things forward. We get things done. And so I was able to bring our 42 member team together and, evaluated the vendors, did hours of demo sessions, better understood what our office needed to support our different divisions, and moved us forward to selecting a vendor. We got a contract signed in June of this year. And then in July, 1 month later, we already started the implementation process. So we are already implementing a new technology solution that will move us forward, increase productivity, increase efficiencies, get rid of a lot of our manual processes. We will have a system that represents and reflects a Silicon Valley assessor's office, and I was able to lead that effort, and we're on our way. And so to your point about the 3 other opponents in this race who talk about this, I like to say they're saying they're going to do things that I am already doing. I've already invested the money and resources moving the solution forward, and it's going well. And we hope to go live in 2 years. And that's the type of leadership that I've brought to the office, and I will do differently. I'm also increasing community engagement, and I'm doing it differently than it had been done in the past. I am going to communities. I'm talking about the assessor's office. I'm talking about what we're doing, letting people know that we have exemptions that we want them to take advantage of. Veterans exemptions, homeowners exemptions. These are things that will help taxpayers save money. And I want to make sure that every taxpayer here in Santa Clara County is aware of our programs and services because we're here to serve them. Our customer service in the office has a 94% positive rating. I always say, even if something is working well, I always look for areas of improvement. And if there are ways for us to even though we're 94% and we're doing great on customer service, I always look if there are ways for us to improve what we're doing and to measure it to make sure it's working. So those are just some of the things I've already started. I'm looking at our fee schedule to see if there are changes we can do there, because when you request data from our office, for some data files, you do have to pay a fee. Yeah. And so figuring out if this is another way to serve our community by providing certain data and information that doesn't require them to pay a fee. Being an attorney and being the attorney for the assessor's office years ago, I also understand the appeals process. This is when you have property owners challenge the assessed value on their property. And as the attorney who did that, knowing the business, being able to defend the assessed value, I want us to look at that process to make sure it continues to serve the residents, taxpayers, the county, and also our office.
All right, we're going to go back to the attorney subject. That's a very interesting one. But before that, I would just ask something like this. So how did you know Larry Stone, and how did you get his endorsement, and what do you think why he picked you?
Right.
And also, you mentioned like Larry has been holding this position for 30 years. Yeah. Do you think that's a good thing? Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
So many questions in there, Liam. So how do I know Larry? I was his attorney. I was the attorney for the assessor's office years ago, and Larry was the assessor. And when you're the attorney for a department or an office, you get to know leadership. You give them legal advice, and you work closely with the team and the leadership in the office. So that's how I initially worked with Larry. I also served.
When was that?
This was back in 2010. So this was 2010 through around 2013.
I see.
Yeah. So years ago, I was one of the attorneys for the assessor's office and got to know Larry really well.
And then why he likes you?
Well, I don't know if he likes me. But what he does think is I am qualified. And that is very important to not just Larry. You look at my endorsement list. I have been endorsed by so many assessors across the state because they value individuals who know the work, which I do, is able to represent the office both internally and externally. And 3, has the legally required qualification to be a California assessor. Of all the candidates running, Liam, I am the only candidate with the property tax certification that the law requires us to have to be a California assessor. So when you ask why Larry endorsed me, and he said it in a quote, he basically said, based on my 30 years, I know what this job requires. And Neysa has the qualifications, the leadership, the management acumen to lead this office. And that's why he has endorsed me. And bear in mind, there are other candidates that asked for his endorsement, right? It wasn't, I like to say Larry's not an easy grader. Right? Going back to education, we know strict teachers, right? He's not an easy grader. So he really wanted to make sure that whoever he endorsed for this seat, especially someone who's been serving for 30 years, he knows what's required. It's not an easy job. It's not, a lot of focus, Liam, has been on implementing the new technology solution, which I've already started. Yeah. This job is much bigger than that.
Yeah,
our
office
has over 245 employees. We're doing assessments, audits, appeals.
Just let me just insert a little information. Because when I did the last candidate interview, I did the research, and the information I got is the employee is like 160 some people. Then Yan Zhao told me like now it's like 200 some people, right? I believe it will keep growing, and I worry it's keep growing. So get back to the third question I just asked. Like he holds this position for such a long time. Do you think it's possible there could be take it for granted attitude, and also like a lack of motivation, even possible corruption could be happened? I mean, that's considered human nature, right?
Right. I can tell you our office, the Santa Clara County Assessor's Office, has professionals who comply with the law. Yeah. And they ran, when Larry was our assessor, an ethical, fair, with a lot of integrity. That's how our office was run. And I plan as the next assessor to do the same thing. 30 years, Liam, I will not be serving 30 years as the assessor. I want to put that on the record. Wherever the record is, I will not be serving for the next 30 years. I do think, as an elected official, it's a very subjective decision. It's a personal decision on how long you serve. For me, I will continue to serve as long as I think I'm still adding value, where my skill sets, my acumen, my leadership is still adding value. And frankly, if I'm still enjoying the job.
Or probably, are you looking for a higher possibility?
No, I am not. I am very excited. There's a reason why I'm running for this seat. It's a combination of loving the work. I know the work. I love the work. It's law-driven, and it's very process-driven, right? And I thrive in that environment. I love the team and collaborative environment of our office. So I love the work, and I love the fact that it's public service. We're giving back to the community, and we're serving the community. And the assessor's office, Liam, because of the revenue we generate, we fund public safety, healthcare, mental health, education.
Yeah, for sure. You're collecting tax, man.
Well, sorry. So what we're doing, so the assessor's office in some counties, as you know, there are 58 counties in California. And in some counties, you do have the same person acting as the assessor and the tax collector. Not in Santa Clara County. In Santa Clara County, we actually have just the assessor. And then separately, there's a tax office. So we don't actually collect the taxes. The tax collector does. Our job as professionals in the assessor's office is to identify all the assessable property in Santa Clara County. So commercial, residential, business, personal property, aircraft, boats, mobile homes. So our job every year is to identify all these different assessable properties as defined under the law, and assign a value to these different properties. And that total value of all our property in Santa Clara County gets put on what we call the annual assessment roll. Then we take that roll. So this past year, our assessment roll was $725 billion. And that was a slow roll growth year, right? And so what we do after we do that assessment, and we have that, $725 billion assessment roll, we take that information and data and we pass that over to the tax collections. And then they're the ones that apply different percentages, for property taxes. Some of the tax bills will include specific city taxes that they also include depending on where you live in the county. But that's what we do. We pass that assessment roll because then they apply the 1% to calculate and then distribute the revenue dollars directly generated from the work we do, from that $725 billion.
Yeah, so that makes this position have sort of like great power. Like this position can wield superpower actually. So that's also leads to potential corruption. But so far, I didn't hear anything yet about how did Larry do, right?
Right.
So what in the future, how can we prevent this position would not be abused by the corruption of power?
Yeah. And Liam, you hit the nail on the head because a lot of times we get asked, why is the assessor position an elected position? And this is one of the reasons where you need to hold your assessor accountable. You need to make sure that your assessor is compliant. They know the laws, and I know the laws because I'm an attorney and I'm also working in the office, that they're able to ensure a fair, accurate, ethical role every year, that the professionals in the office are complying with the laws and applying the right valuation method when they're assessing property. Because you're right. If we don't have the right leadership and we don't instill in our staff the importance of having an ethical office with integrity, we do run that risk that you're describing. And so, someone who knows the laws and someone who makes sure we enforce it. We also we also check the work.
But do you support term limits in the future?
For the assessor's office, that would be a state change. So for the assessor, so just so you know, for the assessor, the district attorney, and the sheriff, the 3 county-wide offices in Santa Clara County, those are the only 3 offices that don't have term limits. For the supervisors, for council, for all the other positions, they have term limits. I think some school board members don't have term limits as well. But city council, the board of supervisors, they have term limits. And I actually think one of the reasons why the California law was drafted this way, it's because for the DA, the sheriff, and the assessor, the work we do in the office is so specialized, right? So for example, for the DA, for the district attorney, you need to have a law background. For the sheriff, you need to have a law enforcement background. For the assessor, you need to have a property tax certification. Because all 3 have specific specialized requirements, you want to make sure that you have someone in the job qualified doing the work. It is not like a city council position or a supervisor position where you have more variety in the skill sets that they bring. Someone with this background will make an amazing supervisor or council member, but that's not a requirement that you have that background. We have medical professionals, we have service workers, we have attorneys, we have business people, we have law enforcement officers. We have a variety of people representing us on the board of supervisors, backgrounds, and city council. When it comes to positions like the assessor's office, even if that's your original background, if you want to be an assessor, you'd still need to have this unique requirement, which is the property tax certification. And I am the only candidate with that certification.
So why did Larry Stone suddenly drop the what's that? What would you say? Continue to hold the office and decided to hold a special election, which allegedly cost maybe $20 million of the taxpayers. Is that true? And what are you going to respond to that?
Right. So you'd have to bring Larry on your show, Liam, to ask him why he retired, because it was a
Based on what you have.
Right.
What
No,
you know.
it was a personal decision on Larry's part. That is something you'd have to ask Larry, and whether or not he wants to disclose his personal decision. But I'll tell you, with regards to the cost of the election, just getting back to the facts of the election, right now, we have 3 different measures on the ballot. It's not just the assessor race. We have Proposition 50, we have the sales tax measure, which is Measure A from the county, and then you have the assessor's race. And how it works is, there are different costs assigned to the different measures that are on the ballot. So the assessor's race is not paying or costing the county the entirety of the election bill. We have at least 2 other measures. And so the cost for the election is split among all the different things on the ballot.
So another aspect of this issue is do you think ideology will have impact on your office, like this assessor? Supposedly, it should be a neutral position, right?
I agree.
It should not swing by what you believe. But we all know, somehow in public service, we will have this personal preference and tends to move or work things towards that.
Right.
Do you want to talk about this?
So I'm glad Liam, I can tell you did your research, because you're correct here where the assessor's office, it's nonpartisan, right? It is really a neutral position. I always say it doesn't matter what your party affiliation is. It doesn't matter where you live in the county. It doesn't matter race, ethnicity. It doesn't matter your background. Everyone should care about ensuring you have someone who's qualified to be the assessor who will govern that well. That should be the test when you're voting on who the next assessor will be, because this role is so important. It will impact our schools, public safety, healthcare. And so we cannot risk this office going to an individual that does not have the right experience and qualifications to lead this office, especially in these uncertain times. And so it is a nonpartisan office. The assessor should focus on the work of the office and make sure that we're running a professional office. The work is getting done. We have 3 big priorities in the office. It's 1, meeting our state mandated role. Like every year, as I mentioned before, we have to assess all these properties, and we have auditors, appraisers, assessment clerks. We have different roles in our office, and it's a big job, and we have to make sure we're managing our resources to get this done so we're not penalized. So that's the number 1 priority in our office. That's what the assessor needs to be focused on. The second priority in our office is implementing this modern technology solution that I was able to bring into the office. Now we're in the implementation phase, right? We're doing data conversion, migration. We're working with the business teams so that we can build the product to reflect their work and allow for automation and workflow of the data. That's what we've started already, and that will be the second priority in our office. And then the third priority in our office are the appeals I mentioned, because there are property owners who are filing appeals, and we have staff in our office that have to handle those appeals. And so as the assessor, Liam, that's what you need to be focused on, because we need to make sure this office continues to work well, function well, and serve the people of Santa Clara County.
Yeah, from what I heard, some appeal takes about 700 days to get even a respond. Is that something?
So to get a response, how the process works, if someone files an appeal, it actually doesn't come to the assessor's office. It goes to the clerk of the board.
Clerk of the board.
Clerk of the board. And that's a county office. Because then they're actually, the taxpayer is filing an appeal saying they're challenging the assessed value we put on the roll. And so then they're filing this appeal with the clerk of the board. They don't file it with us because then we're basically going to be arguing against each other. So that goes to the clerk of the board. The clerk of the board is then responsible for calendaring the hearing, assigning it to the hearing officers or the appeals board. And then we get notified so that we can get our team ready for the appeal. So that's how the process works.
So your office actually provide the basic need for the community, but also it's about somehow has something to do with ideology. It's like, do we tax people too much or too little? Like, what do you think? Should we like have tax people less or more?
So again, and it's good that you're asking that, because I hope you ask all the assessors that question, because their response should be, that is not within the purview of the assessor. Our job, Liam,
just implement the law.
Right, to implement the law. If it works out that when we implement the law that revenue goes up, the revenue goes up. If when we enforce and implement the law, the revenue goes down, the revenue goes down. Because we have no control over what happens when we implement and enforce the law. We're just there to make sure that we're applying the right valuation, we're applying the right laws, and then we'll see what happens.
All right.
Yeah.
So the last topic I will talk about is like somehow maybe a little controversial opinion. Okay. So, China does pretty well nowadays, right? And lots of people's analysis is like China has been run by a bunch of engineers, because our presidents and ex-presidents, they are good at solving problems. But this country, the United States, has been run by lawyers. Basically, this country is the decision maker mainly from university like Georgetown, like Harvard Law, right? And do you agree with this? And what's the possible differences it makes?
Right.
For different people to run things.
Right. Oh, that's such an interesting question. I do know, councils, supervisors, members of Congress, there are a lot of lawyers, but there are also engineers, finance folks. Like there's a variety. There's more of a variety than I think people may realize. I do think for some positions, so going back to what I said about for the district attorney, you need someone in a law background. With the sheriff, you want someone in the law enforcement. I do believe for some positions, it is helpful and beneficial to the community to have someone with a law background. And the assessor is actually one of those positions, because a lot of what we do in the assessor's office, it's all law driven. It really is. And so that is one of the key positions that having a law degree is very, very helpful and will help that person to lead and enforce the office and to make sure we continue to serve the residents of Santa Clara County.
All right. So, you definitely is really good at in speech. And do you want to have the last statement, whatever in your mind, to talk to our audience as an ending?
No, I would. And first, again, thank you. So my daughter, as I mentioned, speaks Mandarin. I will not attempt to speak the little Mandarin that I may know, but thank you so much for having me. This was great. Thanks for inviting me to share my story and why I'm running for county assessor. I hope anyone listening to this will understand why I believe I'm the best candidate to be the next county assessor. You mentioned, so there are 3 other candidates, and I actually like to say, the other 3 candidates, how I distinguish myself. One, they're all talking about doing things that I am already doing. So, for example, modernizing the office, I'm already doing that, Liam. The other 3 candidates will talk about things they're going to fix that aren't broken. And then they also talk about doing things that an assessor does not have the authority to do and should not get in the business of doing. And so I look forward to serving the community as the next assessor. Thank you so much.
All right.
And have
Good
a nice
luck,
evening.
Neysa.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.